And let me make sure that we are getting plugged in. All right, we are live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and even live on Periscope, believe it or not.
It's a nice setup you got going there.
It's yeah, man, it's fun getting to get back into this world again.
So how many episodes have you done so far?
So this is episode 14. This show was started, I want to say something like 6-7 weeks ago. I've been doing 2 shows a week so far. And what we're going to start doing soon is actually putting, we just finalized the budget, so we're actually going to be putting the spend behind each episode as well, which is going to be, that part is going to be super fun.
Cool. So much work must go into doing this well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're going live to multiple properties, all the interview prep and everything, lining up people, managing all of that, putting the story together, all of that. I mean, you're a natural with a lot of this stuff, Dee, but it's, after watching a couple of the episodes that you've done, it's pretty clear that you're not just relying on being a natural, you're putting the work into it too.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I appreciate you. It takes someone from production to understand the work behind production for sure. It is, but it's I mean, one, it's very rewarding. And 2, it's definitely very much, like there is a lot of work involved. Like I honestly cannot wait to get an assistant dedicated just for this show, some kind of line producer or something to be able to handle all of the tech. My own Ilsu.
He's asking you to visit Australia.
That'd be amazing. Ilsu, if you have a brother or something, let me know, man. All right, sharing this into the group as well. Let's post it there. And let's share this to the page. No, not that one. Where were you before you came back to South Korea? Were you back in the States?
Splitting my time between Toronto and New York.
Right.
Weekends in Toronto, during the week in New York, but things started to go a little crazy in New York.
Oh my goodness, tell me about it.
It's like a war zone almost. And I mean, you don't see bullets flying and like people lying on the street. Well, actually, there have been cases of that. But you just look at the expression on people's faces, and it's hard, and it's incredible that people are trying to find a way to remain resilient and positive through the hardship. But you can't take away the fact that locking people being locked down for an extended period of time, the fear of the virus, compounded by fear of it just not being managed. All of that, heart goes out to the New Yorkers out there that are going through this, kind of at the tip of the spear in America, fighting off COVID-19. And then you know, everybody knows somebody that's been directly affected in tragic ways. You've got the first responders out there. It's just it's especially heartbreaking how those people are out there trying to make a difference, holding COVID-19 at bay, and a lot of them just don't even have the right protective equipment. So
Isn't that wild?
It's a frightening world out there in New York, unfortunately. So incredibly brave what they're doing.
It's really just watching the footage in the media of New York. It's so sobering. It's absolutely insane. And then meanwhile here, you know, a lot of people right now are holding Australia up as an example to follow. But, you know, being here throughout the entire time, and watching the different states, I think a lot of it really wasn't so much the behavior rather than it is the behavior of the citizens, rather than the fact that we just don't have population density. We're a very, population that is very drawn out, very much like California in terms of landscape. We've got Sydney, within the CBD, everything's really, really tight. But beyond that, I mean, it's not like there are model citizens here and everyone's staying away and everyone's staying apart whatsoever. So it's super interesting to watch how that unfolded.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the low density here in Seoul where I am. It's super dense here. We're shoulder to shoulder. But when people come together, they find a way. And if there's a sense of being willing to sacrifice for society as a whole, like these small sacrifices around personal freedoms, which aren't small in the grand scheme of things, because our personal freedoms are important, but so is life. And even if it doesn't affect you as myself as an individual in a tragic way, it can affect others. And so small sacrifices in personal freedoms, like wearing a mask, like staying home, things like that, it all matters. It all matters. It makes a difference.
Absolutely. Hey, for those of you that are joining us, I can see a few of you guys here. Do us a favor. If you can see us, you can hear us. Audio is good and video is good. Do me a favor, just drop in an emoji, just even a hello emoji, like a waving hand, just to let us know we're all good. So I've got David Lee with us today. Really pumped about having this conversation. My heart lies in tech. That was my first venture, and I crave those types of conversations always, just because being in e-commerce and being in the services business where we're at right now, the quality of conversations are very different. So what we're talking about today is essentially what e-commerce owners and brand owners can learn from the consumer tech world and from the tech world in general, and vice versa too. So that's gonna be it's gonna be a super fun one. Make sure you tag a friend that needs to watch this as well. David and I connected a while ago, back when we first started our partnership with Shaker, and since then we've done a lot of really cool things together with the Shaker team. And there's a creative grant that I want to tell you guys about as well. So whenever if you guys got some creative that you want to get done, Shaker's got it. So make sure you guys tag a friend that needs to see this. Alexandra, what's good? James, what's good? Ibrahim, what's good? Happy that all of you guys are here. We got 1 minute 55 seconds before we kick this thing off, so I'm super pumped. How's Anton doing, by the way? Is he still rocking that beard?
Yeah, he's. I think he said that he's going to keep it going until COVID-19 dies down. So he's going to have a full Gandalf going soon.
Wow, is it getting kind of beastly now?
He's a beastly guy, but the beard is too now. It's.
Wow. Okay, I haven't jumped on video with him for a while, but the last time we connected, it was in February, and already was starting to really get nice and thick. So that's gonna be funny.
You might have a zoo in there or something. I mean that's
like a bird just like pops out. The bird's head just pops out. Start hearing chirping coming out of his chin.
I once tried growing a beard. Didn't work for me.
Yeah, see, I don't have that type of like the Northern Chinese. Typically, they get the burly thing going on, but with my heritage, this does not work. I just get the Fu Manchu whiskers on the side. It's kind of tragic. It's pretty tragic. But I did rock a shaved head like you for like a good 10-15 years though. Just life is so much simpler.
Well, I hear that there are a lot of people struggling with getting haircuts these days with COVID and the lockdown.
There you go.
Highly recommend it.
There you go. All right, 10 more seconds. Let us get rolling. What's going on? What's going on? Thank you so much for joining us here on this Growth and Greatness Show live. Today, the guest we have is David Lee, CEO and founder of Shaker, which is a video creative platform. I'm very pumped about this because my heart, like I said before in the pre-roll, my heart lies really very much in tech. I've got a lot of love for people that work in the tech world just because the challenges are always so interesting and so dynamic. Let me make sure that I intro David properly, and then I'm going to throw over straight to the conversation between David and I. It's going to be a really, really good one. So David's the founder and CEO of Shaker, like I mentioned before, where he and his team are making great video for everyone with over 2,000 clients, including American Express, Audible, Bank of America. We're going to make sure that we ask him about how he closed those deals as well, for those of you that want some tips out there. So David has nearly 2 decades of experience in the tech industry. So prior to founding Shaker, David and his team launched the world's first vision-based mobile augmented reality game and founded an e-learning startup in 2004. And Witoku, the easiest way to produce multi-party video for bloggers. So as you can see, he's got deep experience in this space. So without further ado, I'm going to throw over to my man, David. David, what's going on? Thanks for joining us.
Dee, thank you so much for having me here, and really excited to meet you all. I've been watching this show for a little bit, and a lot of work goes into it, I could tell. And we're hearing some great stories. Looking forward to talking with you all.
Can't wait to hear your story too. And appreciate you for watching and following the show, especially considering the absolute crazy busy schedule you must be going through too. What's the
Well, fortunate that I'm able to stay busy with everything that's going on with COVID-19. A lot of people under lockdown. I'm in Korea right now. I just arrived here about a month ago, and fortunately, the economy is still rolling here. So very thankful to be able to be at work.
I was actually about to ask. Give us. I mean, there are certain key countries that dominate the media in terms of the news that comes out of there. And as it stands right now, especially here in Australia, I don't get very exposed to what's happening in South Korea. So can you give us a snapshot of, because the economy is rolling and seems like there's a handle on things. How's it looking out there?
It's, I think, feeling quite safe here. The management of the situation by the government is quite competent. And most importantly, I think everybody's come together to make some key sacrifices around some small personal freedoms, which are important, but people are making a conscious decision to sacrifice some of these personal freedoms for the greater good, because we know it's not something it's not going to be like this always. I've heard people say, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, but you know what? We do know what's going to happen. We're going to come through this. We're going to come through this stronger. We're going to persist, and the sun will rise. Yeah,
absolutely. Now we were chatting just before during the pre-roll, and I really want to pose you this question because it's a question that I ask myself a lot. Do you, coming from Asian descent, but living in a Western society, do you identify more as Western, more as Asian, or how do you navigate what kind of lens do you see the world in?
Geez, it's a tough one. I mean, growing up, the challenges around identity with that were difficult, and I think the challenges around exploring and finding my identity with that, the Asian side of me and the North American side of me, that's something that I struggled with. But then I realized that it's both that matter, and I think that my own unique experience probably aligns with, there's a large swath of the population that shares a lot of very similar experiences to myself. So I don't really feel the need to put myself in either camp. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hence why that question, having that same type of challenge as well, where you see the upbringing forces, I guess, people like us to see the world in a fairly unique standpoint that most people don't get the, I guess, privilege, if you will, of seeing it that way, where coming from the Asian camp, it's like certain Western cultures make you go, wait, how does that work? And then the other way, and having to explain it to either party as well, right? Because sometimes you get questions from Western friends about Asian culture, and you try to explain it, and I see sometimes their eyes just glaze over. They're like, what's filial piety? You mean Wait, your parents never told you they're proud of you? What the hell does that mean? You never got hugs? They smacked their kids? So it's that question, I guess, was definitely pointed at the Asian immigrant parents audience that we have, or kids of Asian immigrant parents that we have out there in the audience. I'm a very big fan of representation. I think representation matters. Seeing, as an example, growing up, I could never find in popular culture someone that I could look up to, like a TV star hero or a Hollywood hero or anything of that nature, because it was essentially, for the longest time, Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan.
Yep.
So it was that type
or
of
the goofy Asian guy in the glasses and the buck teeth.
And the buck teeth, exactly, always portrayed as the AP math guy or the AP physics guy, and that's what we were capable of in the public eye, and very much in the business world as well. It was very dominated by that older white male, and then only very much in recent times we start seeing a lot of Asian business leaders start coming to the forefront, which is why I'm so excited to have you on this show, because we get an opportunity to also explore that realm as well. Now, let's move. I'd like to move on to getting an understanding of, with what is happening so far, and back when it first popped off, what ran through your mind in terms of, hey, what is the future of my business? I have a fiduciary responsibility to my investors. Were there calculations? I'm sure there are calculations getting in your head around what's going to happen next, how we're going to respond to this. What type of conversations were you having, say, 8-9 weeks ago?
Now, first of all, we've been very fortunate here at Shaker. We've been able to keep our team together. Our team has really banded together to overcome this. So very thankful for that. The persistent sense of gratitude among myself and all of my peers, that's just been very heartwarming. But like a lot of other businesses, COVID's affected us tremendously. In some ways positively, in some ways we've taken a hit. We had started to make a lot of progress in the travel vertical, and there's nothing that can be said or done on that front. I think some things we just need to acknowledge, because the line item that they had for spending with creative personalization at scale using Shaker, that's tiny compared to the terrible and heartbreaking sheer number of layoffs that they've had to go through. So the change the travel industry has been hit with, so that affected us as well. But same thing with anything terrible that happens, or challenges, problems, bumps in the road. And this is much more than a bump in the road. We have to roll with the punches, and understanding that travel for the time being isn't a vertical that we can continue to invest heavily in. Acknowledging that was important, but then after that, identifying what are the opportunities, because they're there. We've got an audience of e-commerce sellers right now, and e-commerce sellers are finding a way to, in many ways, continue to thrive, but in other ways, looking for different markets, different customers. At the end of the day, finding a way to come through this stronger on the other end, I think that's something that matters a ton, and that's something we strive to do here at Shaker.
Amazing. And so, a lot of I would imagine that most of the audience base that we have are either solopreneurs or they have a small team. Definitely not gone through the path of being in part of a 500 startups cohort or anything of that nature. Can you talk us through what is it like being the CEO of a tech company where there is a board to have conversations with, there are investors to have conversations with, as opposed to a self-funded business where it's completely up to them, right? It's a very different dynamic. Can you get us a peek into that world?
Yeah, certainly. I think that there's tremendous benefit to having a board that you can turn to for advice, additional perspectives. We all come to the table with life experiences, professional experiences, and having a board is a vehicle to be able to share some of those experiences with the company. And I think it's been very empowering, if anything, to be able to meet regularly with our board. And there's, I guess, a scope, a way in which they interact with the business. They're not here to do day-to-day management. So that's very much still my job and the job of our management team here at Shaker. So just having a healthy view of what the dynamics need to be, and then over communicating that matters a ton. But geez, the board that we have in place, phenomenal. We've got an ex-Facebook vice president on our board, a couple of venture capital investors, as well as one of my colleagues here on the management team at Shaker. So it's a structured way to challenge our thinking and make sure that we're staying disciplined.
See, and this is why I am relishing this opportunity to have this conversation with you, because there is a camp, especially with the smaller direct-to-consumer businesses, where sometimes the concept or the idea of entertaining having investors might get vilified because it's, I'm giving up a slice of my pie, and why should I give up a slice of my pie? And in tech, it's such a different viewpoint where they talk about you don't start a tech company without talking about at some point a raise, whether it is seed or Series A, Series B, etc. Meanwhile, in especially the small business direct-to-consumer land, there isn't even a conversation around smart money, dumb money, what doors can be opened from investors, etc. So for the benefit of those of our audiences out there that are running direct-to-consumer, smaller business, e-commerce, and they have aspirations to turn it into a brand, for example, where it is a much larger enterprise. What is the way to circumnavigate the mindset around inviting investors around joining the company and being part of that journey and making it stronger?
Well, I think first of all, most businesses don't need to raise money. Most businesses shouldn't raise money. To be honest,
Amazing.
Companies that are raising money, we're not raising money because we're doing business right now. We're raising money because we're at that stage. It's something that needs the outside funding in order to really be a business, because businesses spend money with the expectation of a return. And in a lot of cases, a startup that's raising money, they're spending money without a clear expectation of a return on each dollar that's going out at that moment, because a lot of them don't have a business model yet. Are you a business without a business model? Now, technically, yeah, they're incorporated, their businesses and all that. But what I admire about the audience of direct-to-consumer sellers out there, you all have businesses with clearly defined business models. You're out there hustling, working hard, looking at channels, analyzing the performance, adjusting course, all of that. That's business, and you guys are doing that day in, day out, and that matters a ton. We've gone through a few rounds of funding at Shaker, and it's probably been just in the past a couple of years that I'd say like we're doing business, kind of like similar to the way that everybody in this audience is doing. So we spend money with a clear expectation of how we're going to have a return, and that's liberating. So the first, I guess, if you're looking for advice around how to go about a round of funding, for guys like the people in this audience, I think the best way to go about a round of funding is to not go about a round of funding. Continue doing what you're doing. It's a little bit of judo, but use that momentum from your business, grow it, scale it, find new markets, launch new lines of products, find ways to overcome the adversity of COVID-19 and come out stronger on the other end. All of that, I think, is the single best thing that you can do to eventually, when you need it, or when you make that decision to go to like a dramatically different scale, at that point, it all becomes more possible because you focused on growth.
The best time to raise money is when you don't need money, right?
But if you've made a decision to, I'd say it comes down to what's your story? What is your story? And how are you the hero of your story?
Interesting.
Dee, earlier in our conversation, you talked about how growing up, we didn't have these great role models that we identified with as much on TV and in movies and popular culture. The ads that we see, the celebrities we see on TV, all this stuff for a child, it really, as you're growing up, it defines things like beauty and sexuality, strength and courage. It defines intelligence. All these things are views of the world. It gets shaped by a lot of the content that we're consuming, the stories that we're consuming. Now, I think whether you're a child or an adult, either way, there's tremendous power, unlimited power in being able to tell yourself a story wherein you are the hero. And if you can do that, then the unlimited power that you can tap into to go out there with confidence, and it's got to be something that you sincerely believe, and that's kind of self at a few different levels. That's self just me, looking inward, self within family, self within the scope of the work that I'm doing, for others, with others, my role in the world, all of that. How am I the hero of that story? And we all are, because we've all got challenges, trials, and tribulations that we're going through. How are you the hero of that story?
Amazing. And what a powerful way to be introspective around this movie of life that you are living, where you are the protagonist and there are all these challenges, and eventually there's a dragon to slay, and eventually there's a maiden to save, and all those analogies from great storytelling. I'm a big fan of looking at how story mimics life and vice versa. Joseph Campbell's a big hero of mine in terms of the hero of a thousand faces, the power of myth, etc. And it's such a powerful way to really look out at it. You brought up a really interesting point just a few lines ago. It all comes down to story. Do you believe that the narrative of a startup, the narrative of a business, can be crafted or should be crafted so that if it does need to be presented to external investors, there is a narrative there that they can follow and almost project out, okay, I can see the potential of this business. Now let's go there. I mean, whether it is an investor or whether it is someone that's looking to acquire that business.
I think that narrative is the narrative that appeals to you as the owner of your business, because you as the owner of your business you're a shareholder, you're the owner, and investors become shareholders. So that narrative is something that resonates with them. But I think what the most, and that's a fairly, once we come to that sense of common understanding and in some ways tremendous excitement around the narrative, where we understand how we are the hero of our story. That's one thing that I think we can put to the side, because the next very important story to tell is the story that you're versioning now, so that it's relevant to different audiences. Because growing up, both you and I grew up again without those very strong role models that we could identify with as Asians in Western society, as Asian children in Western society. And I think that's just one very simplified view. It's not to undermine it at all, because I've lived through that in my own way, very similar to you. But to be able to version a story so that it's relevant, so that it's inclusive of all the audiences, that matters so much. Inclusivity is tremendously powerful, but the flip side of it, if we're excluding, that does great harm. It's harmful. And so I think that's actually one of the reasons why I started Shaker with this great group of people around me here, The idea was to make great video for everyone. And video is just one of the ways that we're doing storytelling. But the thinking is that everyone deserves to be able to, if not always, but often, have a version of the story in which it's something that they can relate to. And it's something that I think brands, whether you're a direct-to-consumer seller or whether you're a tech startup or whatever, to be able to tell your story in a way that resonates and lands with the person at the other end, that's, I think, an obligation.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's something that is, I love that you brought that up. The whole concept of, or the whole notion, a very powerful notion of the fact that, one, again, representation matters, and brands can do that at scale by determining, hey, I've got this segment of the market, they look like this, breathe like this is what they care about, let's deploy creative that way for them, make them feel special and heard and understood. Oprah Winfrey very famously said, all we want to do in life is be seen, be heard, and be understood. And that's a very compelling thing. How does, when Shaker, you and your team work with brands, how does that flow through in terms of the strategic advice or the approach with the conversations that you have with them?
I found that the greatest brands in the world already have been thinking about creative personalization at scale for a long time. The thing is, to be able to target programmatically or across a wide range of just even to manually create different targeting audiences, that's been possible for a while, from manually all the way to programmatically, automatically. The inventory has been available programmatically for a while. What's been missing is the ability to programmatically affect creative. When we're talking about versioning for so many different audiences, for so many, instead of having one message being sent out to millions of people, having one message for one person, having another for the next person, millions of messages, all designed for the individual. That's been the bottleneck. How do you version the creative? Because the cost of that has just been prohibitive, the amount of time, the kind of work that it is. It's just, so that's where we focused. But I found that the brands are often already thinking about, who are my customers? Like we've got so many D2C sellers here right now. I think that every single one of you is thinking about, who are my customers? I remember seeing an episode of, from Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, and he wrote about how, or he talked about, he was in some kind of shoe store or luxury store, and or was it a realtor? Anyhow, he had an audience of people around him, and he said, "How many of you like wine?" And they all put up their hands. And he said the name of this very fancy bottle of wine, and they all recognized it. But I think this bottle of wine, let's call it, maybe it was a couple $100, let's say. Then what happened was he talked about how somebody walked into the store. This person was talking about this football player, I think, or some athlete, and bought the bottle of wine, left, and right away he told one of his colleagues to send that jersey, bought it off eBay, and he lost money on it. But then the loyalty that came out of it, a recommendation to somebody who bought many more bottles of some very expensive wine. To be able to understand each individual customer, that's something that all sellers are doing. It's something that we all do innately. So that work from the individual direct, kind of sole operator, direct to consumer brand, all the way up to some of the largest companies in the world, we're all thinking about who are our customers. We're all thinking about the diversity of our customers. And it really just comes down to having the way to deliver a tailored message to each of those individual customers.
You've just served up, by the way, and I love that. I love that story. I actually know the story that you're talking about, and I remember that video where he told that story too. You just served up the perfect segue, by the way, for those of us that have not interacted with the Shaker platform. I have, my team has, and I remember first opening it up and also speaking to your team and Anton specifically, and I was like, okay, these guys are onto something cool here. But for those of us that have not, How does Shaker provide that? How does Shaker bring that solution to the table in terms of being able to deploy at scale that type of customization to the point where on the receiving end, the end consumer goes, wow, I just got made feel really, really special from this one brand because they did it almost for me.
Happy to share more about that. I think that it starts with a decade ago when we founded the company. There were a couple of things that we landed on as being very central and core to who we are. Some parts of that, like hero journey and that hero story about how we wanted to be there to empower the creative community, the designers that are like the equivalent of the Pablo Picassos of the motion graphics world, all the way down to the guys that are just getting started. We want to empower them to thrive in a world that was trending towards automation. In a world where a lot of these jobs are getting automated away, we wanted to make sure that that we were finding a way to help those individuals, the creative professionals, not just survive, but thrive in a world of automation. So that's an example of just as we're being affected by COVID-19 worldwide today, and this is adversity, finding a way to thrive coming out the other end of this adversity. Same thing for designers. We wanted to make sure that they could thrive going through a world that's trending towards automation. So what we decided to do was we decided to take their work as is and turn it into a programmable object. Without them needing to sit next to a programmer, without having the designer using a watered down tool that makes it easy for us to automate. What we do is we take that first video that's produced by a professional designer, and inside the Shaker platform, we do a lot of magic and make it something that can be versioned automatically. So you have a list of every single one of your products, for example. So we had a case where with one of the world's largest, actually, I think one of the world's two largest e-commerce platforms, they sent us one video that was designed by a professional designer, and then they sent us a product catalog. And these guys have hundreds of millions of products. So they took many products, combined it with the one video, and then automatically the product in that video was swapped out with each of the other products. So they had millions and millions of versions of this single video. So they could then do retargeting ads with video. Low-hanging fruit for all D2C sellers, right? You want to be able to drive engagement around specific products. Well, then you need creative for those specific products. And the way that Shaker interacts with a D2C seller is maybe you have an existing designer you work with, or maybe you engage with us to produce that first video for you. And through the creative grant that you mentioned earlier, we do that for free, no strings attached. We produce a video for everyone that's watching this show and beyond. Tell your friends to go spread the word far and wide. We'll invest in producing high quality video for each of you, optimized for mobile. And that'll be done by humans. We have a network of designers worldwide. Not only will we deliver that one video to you at no cost, then what we'll do is give you a template version of that so that you can replace the content in that video with each of the products that you're selling. I think that's tremendously empowering for a D2C seller. You can also do things like swap out the ad copy, seasonality, things like testing, A/B testing, because we've got every single D2C seller is a professional marketer. You guys have it just coursing through your veins. And when you're a professional marketer, you're thinking, how do I A/B test? How do I know that this is the right? Well, let's try a different version. Well, videos are just expensive. So this makes it possible to do it very, very easily right inside the web browser.
Yeah, and that's what really excited me when I first saw the Shaker platform. You know, I worked in TV, that's where I cut my teeth, and then went into video production with my own production company. And video is it has much in the same way that personalized content for the longest time was very cost prohibitive, very resource prohibitive. Video for the longest time was exactly the same. You needed very professional equipment for it to look on par. Now we've got things like these that, just allow us to, on the production side, do really, really great work. And then on the post-production side, have something like Shaker to really augment that piece. So it does not have to be that prohibitive. And all these barriers, this is what I love about the last 10 years in tech and in just being able to be empowered, business owners being able to be empowered, because all these barriers are just falling by the wayside. It used to be so cost prohibitive to even start a company. you could start like a brick and mortar cafe, and that was the echelon, the upper echelon. My parents, they aspired to opening like a chicken rice store, and that was like, I can't wait to own my own business. Now, 5 minutes, few clicks, and you can have a business money generating business already. So that's why I love where Shaker fit into all of that. It just enablement, right? Just empowerment in a world where previously you had to hire a full team and an editor and have expensive software and know-how and all that. Now, here's an interesting one. I mean, looking back at your life as a founder, life as in tech, I notice a theme, a trend, where it's always catering towards people that want to be creative, whether it's bloggers, whether it's people that want an AR experience, and now with Shaker. What do you think draws you to that audience, to that serving that subset of people?
That's just part of who I am, just an appreciation for creativity and the creative process. I think that one of the things I've landed on as we go through COVID-19, along with the rest of the world, along with each of you, is that creation matters a lot. It's intrinsic to who we are. It's so important to a thriving economy. And how are we creating? We are all storytellers. At the very least, we are crafting these stories that we're sharing with the world about creating view of self, creating how can we great product, D2C product that I bought recently, BlazePod for exercise. You're able to the light flicks and then you hit it and then it turns off and you've got 4 little BlazePod things, great for exercise. What is the story that you're telling with that? And so I think everybody is creating something and landing on how that story is making a difference. It's so important. But what led to me kind of getting to that realization was just a persistent appreciation for and just admiring the creators of the world. And my definition of who's creating it just kept getting broader and broader and broader.
Interesting.
But at the beginning, the obvious thing is, hey, the creators are the artists, the storytellers, the engineers, and that just kept it expanding. But as I started with, I guess, the obvious definition of creator, I just started to have an appreciation for the beauty of creation, for the craft that went into it, the blood, sweat, and the tears that went into it, and I've always surrounded myself with creative people. So that's always been a part of my journey. And because I've been around them, I built empathy with them, and having that empathy, it just led to me wanting to be my own view of self, my own, that being the hero of my story. I wanted to be that person that could make a difference for the creative community. That was something that was always important to me. And I saw this trend of you've got the creative community that's always, the designers are always producing high quality work, trying to make a difference. You've got this trend of automation that's hitting. And when the two collide in a lot of industries, you just see automation just gobble things up. Well, I don't think that being gobbled up is and losing to even a formidable foe like automation. It's not something that's a default state for humans. We fight through adversity, and I thought that there would be a way, especially if I could help, to have designers overcome and thrive through the adversity of automation. And we're seeing it today. We're seeing designers from all around the world find a way to not just continue to be similarly relevant, but even more important to the creative process when we're talking about creativity at scale. Because if you take something that's terrible, you take this, you take something that's not great, you take a shitty thing and then you scale it 1,000,000x. What do you get? You get 1,000,000 pieces of shit. It's right.
Absolutely.
So you need to scale something of value, something that's interesting, something that's been created, crafted, and that's why I think humans continue to be super important to to the world of automation. We just need to find which levers are we pulling? Where are we making a difference?
That's so amazing. You're building the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator that got reprogrammed to help the humans versus Skynet, against humans, right? So I see where you're going with that. Now you brought up a good point in the middle there, which is that really powerful word, empathy. And this is a phenomenon that I see occurring very frequently with the people that we interact with in the D2C world, where they approach it sometimes from a product first standpoint and a revenue first standpoint. In other words, instead of going, who is my audience, let's reverse engineer, they go, what product have I found where the numbers make sense for me to sell it? And then I start there. How important is it let me take a few steps back. I would love for our audience to understand the power of empathy that you're deploying and the intimacy that you have with the creatives, for you to then understand, okay, I know now where Shaker serves these people. And I'm hoping for the direct-to-consumer entrepreneurs out there, or any entrepreneur really that's watching this, to understand how does my value proposition serve those people, as opposed to how do I talk up my value proposition? The people will eventually come, a bit of a field of dreams, build and they'll come standpoint. Are there any tactics that you can share, or at least a perspective that you can share, to deploy this empathy, to be able to then get to that place?
So I think that there are, if we were to take what I've just heard and kind of slice it into two different parts, there are the people that are building for, like they've got the product vision, and then their field of dreams, right? They build it and they will come. Then there are the people that are doing kind of audience analysis, market research, and then finding opportunities and building and selling for that.
Yes.
The guys that are doing field of dreams, that's me. There's a long and hard slog where I've been laughed out of rooms. I've been laughed out of rooms by investors.
Wow.
I've been told I was wrong time and time again by industry experts, and I had my field of dreams, and I believed that creative personalization at scale mattered because I sincerely believed that people deserve to have the opportunity to be included in the stories that are being told in popular media. The ads we see are just very important stories as well. They define what is beautiful, sexy, what is strong, brave, all that. So I wanted to do that, and that was my field of dreams. And it took a while for the market to get to a place where we had overlapping thinking, and that's happening now, right now. Just the past 6 months, not even just the past year, but not even the past 6 months, the past 3 months have just been this incredible ride. And we're going to have a banner 2020. But that wasn't the case in the years preceding, because a lot of people were wondering, well, why do I need an extra video? Facebook today even continues to optimize in many cases for a single piece of creative. It takes time to go through that test and learn phase. And if in some cases, it doesn't make sense to have multiple pieces of creative. But in others, it does, to have audience segmentation if you've got enough budget to put behind each audience segment. So it makes sense. So it takes time for the market to kind of catch up to the guy who's doing Field of Dreams. So I think that a lot of businesses end up going the other way, which is identifying the customer and building for that. And what we end up, though, in that case, is a lot of incrementality. I think that both are important and valid, but understanding what you are and who you are and how you're doing it, that matters a ton. Like, are you that Field of Dreams guy, or are you the guy that's going for incrementality? It's super tight management, excellent supply chains, monitor that cash flow very, very carefully. Cash flow is important for everybody, but just if you're managing that with a razor sharp pencil tip, that's something that you need to be very aware of. So I think just being aware of the two differences, that's what matters. And I think that both approaches are not only valid, we need both kinds of people in this world. We need that kind of the mythology of the American, I grew up in North America, so I had this mythology that I grew up with, where there were these like world-changing innovators. And I didn't grow up with the Elon Musk, but I'm still growing. So you've got guys like Elon Musk that are imagining humanity living on Mars, that imagine demolishing an entire industry of dirty fuel burning cars, one of the most powerful industries in the world, and building world changing technology, commercializing it. You had that, and that was a mythology I grew up with. But recently, living in Korea for the past 10 years, there's a different story that was told. There was the mythology of, we can work hard, turn everything into a system, manage things really, really well, adapt when necessary, but then build a new system and continue managing it while there. So I've seen two very different approaches to COVID-19.
Wow, yes.
Like in Korea, very tight management of COVID-19, along with great, in society, just a lot of sense of responsibility, shared responsibility. But in America, we see things like DARPA, who invented the internet, DARPA coming out with a new test that you could get results in just like that, with super high levels of accuracy. And when you roll out technologies like that, it becomes game changing.
Yes.
So this game changing mentality versus the incrementality. I think both are necessary. I started Shaker with this like game changing ambition. But what I've come to realize and appreciate being in Korea through COVID-19 recently is that having a very razor focused approach to managing, they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both. You just need to understand the role of both and where to apply which type of thought framework.
Yeah, situational analysis to horses for courses. That was, man, that is so powerful. That's something that I can definitely use even in my lens of life, and the way I think a lot of our listeners here and watchers here can deploy that to understand that, yes, we do have the game changer, innovator mentality, and that drives a lot of the heart, keep you going, 10 no's, let's get to that one yes. And then on the other side, having that, technical, mechanical pencil, razor sharp type of management can be effective in certain times as well. Is that what kept you going, that game changer mentality, when you got laughed out of rooms? Because when people, when you have a baby and you have this vision that you hold so dear to your heart, and you get laughed out of rooms, or you get so many no's, what was it, thinking back then? What was it that kept you going, you know what, I'm not going to let this one get me down?
This comes back to a couple of things. One, you mentioned empathy. I think it comes down to empathy. I come from the future, baby. I come from the future. And in the future, I've already met that person that I'm serving.
Wow.
That future state customer that I'm making a huge difference for. I've met that person in the future, and I have tremendous empathy for that person in the future. And I know how I'm making a difference for that person, that company in the future. And so when I come back into the present, and people in the past now, that present, when people laughed me out of the room, I was fine, because I knew that future me was making a difference for the world. And having that appreciation, to be able to have that moment of empathy in future me, that's something that helped me weather the storm, to walk through that valley of death and come out on the other side, a little bit parched, but still whole, and still empathetic and thankful for the opportunity that future me knows is something that I'm capable of, we're capable of And it's something that I felt.
Wow, that the way you put it just then, mind blowing. That is such an amazing tool to be able to use, especially for those of us that have this vision where, on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, there are multiple conversations being had, sharing that vision, and most eyes glaze over, or they go, ha, if you can forget about that. But to stay true to the vision and understand where are we going, and sorry that you don't see it, dear whoever it is that I just explained it to, but hey, I'm gonna be okay, and we can circle back in that future, and let's see how everything pans out. We've got one of our guests right now, Mitch Barrington. He was like, "I live in the future. What a great paradigm for encountering obstacles." Amazing. Amazing. Sorry, what were you going to say? You were about to jump in there for a second.
So we had this going to a specific example. We started doing video ads for direct-to-consumer sellers back in 2015. And it was 2016 when Facebook first rolled out video ads for some of their largest customers. So you had to be invited, or you had to be at the table. You had to be in that. You need to get through that oak door. You need to be in that boardroom to be able to have access to video back then. And it wasn't until I think it was, maybe I'm off by a year, but I think it was around the end of 2016 when video ads became rolled out for all advertisers through the self-serve interface. Now, since we were doing video ads for business, digital video ads for business, and we were pitching like the importance of Facebook as the place for this, that was when I was laughed out of the room because they were saying, well, no, David, you can't do it. And I said, it's going to happen. It makes sense for it to happen. And when it did, then it started to click. I said, but then I got laughed out of the room again because somebody ran, there was a fund that invested in a company, a direct-to-consumer company that had run a test using video made using Shaker and their image ad. And the image ad outperformed the video ad. Now, that was back then. And at the time, and even still today, how Facebook defines its algorithms, like how Facebook says, what Facebook prioritizes, that makes a tremendous difference. So at the time, they said, well, we saw the test results. It wasn't good. Thank you. Goodbye. But then things started to change. Over at Creative Shop, Facebook has this phenomenal group of people that are thinking about creative strategy. What are the creative frameworks to do creative well? Over at Creative Shop, they built some principles and frameworks around what makes video effective inside the Facebook ecosystem. So this team at Facebook, they came up with a couple of very important insights. One, they realized that video ads that are served with an image ad together in an ad set, they outperform. They outperform video ads and they outperform image ads. To be able to put both in an ad set together, it works best. And it makes a lot of sense because video is inherently a more eye-catching, kind of engaging format. But sometimes we've got a bad connection on our phone. Sometimes we've got crummy Wi-Fi, maybe too many people in there. For whatever reason, sometimes it makes more sense to deliver an image ad. So by having both inside an ad set, you give Facebook the opportunity to intelligently allocate the right version of the creative asset for that moment. So that was one insight, to be able to put them together. And then we started to see some incredible performance from our D2C clients that were using Shaker to produce video. And the other insights that Facebook started to share with us were around what kinds of video tend to perform better, shorter videos. So we're not talking about like the 30, 60-second videos, because who watches a 30 to 60-second video ad on Facebook? Nobody. So kind of brief engagements, respect the viewer's time. 6 to 12 seconds is all you need. Multiple touch points maybe, but 6 to 12 seconds. So when we started applying some of these frameworks and doing more of our own testing as well, things like making sure that your key message, that was persistently available throughout the video. Because if say you put the key message at the end, most people don't watch the whole video. So yeah, you've grabbed their attention, but if you put the key message at the end, well, you're SOL. So you want to make sure that key message is always there. So a lot of these very basic principles that were tested, these insights, they became part of the Shaker platform as well. And then we so we grew with Facebook, and we grew with this shift to video. And by doing that, now we're seeing time and time again phenomenal results for direct-to-consumer advertisers using Shaker. But most importantly, it really just comes down to D2C seller having the mindset of test and learn, and having the tool to be able to test and learn. So it's not about just one video comparing it against something. It's about, okay, video is generally speaking an important format for us to be adopting, because there are some video only or video first platforms like Instagram Stories, like live video shopping is something that's growing very quickly in Korea. All this stuff, video first. So it's important to have video capability, but then it's video capability where you can rapidly iterate, swap out your ad copy, swap out that featured image, just being able to test against yourself. That test and learn ability is what's important.
Amazing. I love the passion that you have for this subject matter is so infectious. You can actually, if we listen to this back and watch this back again, you can actually sense and hear and see the heightened voice and the flushed cheeks a little bit more, because it really matters to you, and that I think is irreplaceable, right? You can't fake that. Now that being said, we're getting to that time of the show where it's my favorite time of the show. With all that great knowledge being one piece, this next piece is my favorite part of the show for a few reasons. First of all, the Growth and Greatness Show was created because I was inspired by this one TV show called Inside the Actors Studio, hosted by the late James Lipton. It was a long-time Bravo TV program on Bravo TV network. And the late James Lipton, he was inspired by this French host called Bernard Pivot. So we're getting to this point of the show now where I want to keep up that tradition, that long-lasting tradition, where we are going to go into rapid-fire question time. I'm going to fire off questions your way. You can answer for as short or for as long as you would like, right? So here we go. David, what is your favorite book?
The Fountainhead.
Do you remember the author? I'll make sure I add it to the show notes, by the way.
Ayn Rand. The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand.
Amazing. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Work.
What is your least favorite word?
Quit.
What turns you on, switches you on?
Beauty.
What turns you off?
Complacency.
What sound or noise do you love?
Silence. Silence.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Geez, this is a huge one. And now, I hate it, but I need to get over it. And I do get over it. But you asked, so I'll answer. The iPhone emergency alerts.
Ooh, yeah.
Because in Korea, every time there's a new positive test result, they send you an emergency alert if you're in the general area. And it's just, you hear it so much these days. But I hate it. It's this thing that I just need to get over, and I do get over it.
But yeah, I imagine it's a cortisol surging response for sure.
But what is your? It's not going off right now during our interview.
I hear you. Oh my goodness. What is your favorite curse word? It can be English. It can be something. It can be another language as well.
Oh, dude, I don't swear.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Wow, never thought about that. Yeah, I just keep doing what I'm doing, man. It's maybe different industry, but I can't. I'm sorry for lack of imagination. I can't imagine doing anything other than this is just me. I view profession to be a part of self, and I view my sleep as a part of my job, for example. So what is that distinction between personal life and professional life? There is none for me. I think my sleep is a part of my job. Having time with loved ones is a part of my job, because all that stuff, it informs my ability to be excellent when I need to be. And me being excellent in what we call our jobs, our professions, that in turn enables me to express love in very important ways. Because I mean, we talk about money like it's sometimes this dirty thing, but it's not. And there's some dirty ways to earn it, but money is in a very important way one of the fundamental ways in which we enable ourselves to express love. Things like putting a roof over our heads, having a roof over a child's head. How is that not an expression of love? And I'm not talking about needing to put over something that's like a luxury 6-star hotel roof over a kid's head on vacation to some exotic location. But I am talking about there are some fundamental things in life that we need in order to fulfill our responsibilities and express our love. And so I think that profession is very much a part of my personal life. So all that I do, it's all connected. And so I wouldn't change any of that.
Amazing. Now, for those of you watching, now you see why I love this question time. You never know what you're going to get back. It is so amazing. What is the greatest piece of advice you've received that helped you grow?
10% of infinity is still infinity.
I love that one.
And I only heard that, and maybe it's because I heard that about 36 hours ago. I work with a phenomenal coach who has been with me through some very, very hard times. I turn to a few people for regular coaching and advice, but one in particular, Coach Neil, he sat down with me and he mentioned to me, David, 10% of infinity is still infinity. And so there's just an infinite number of problems for us to be tackling, an infinite. And to be able to even just pick a small subset, there's infinite impact that we can have, and then there's infinite power in being able to apply ourselves. So yeah, I think the idea of infinite power, infinite focus, and all that stuff, it's all there.
I love it. I love it. David, what does greatness mean to you?
Greatness is one being genuinely thankful for the opportunity to be the hero of my story, the opportunity to step onto the court, the opportunity to yes, be in the spotlight sometimes. But what I mean by that, and I'll connect this to some more of this mythology, like an ad that I saw from Under Armour featuring Michael Phelps. And it was talking about what he does in the dark when the spotlight isn't on him. Like to really be thankful, to be doing, to be on the world's greatest stage and all that, it takes doing the work in the dark, the unappreciated work, day in, day out. And that work that we put in, it's just, that's greatness. It's Kobe Bryant on the court when nobody else was. It's Michael Jordan, like a glimpse of what you saw in The Last Dance. That's greatness. Are you willing to do the work? Am I willing to do the work? Fuck yeah, I'm willing to do the work. I don't swear, by the way.
Amazing. And final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome.
Amazing.
No, yeah. we all live complex lives, and there's so much guilt and blame that we can assign to ourselves, but nonetheless, I still sincerely hope that I'd be welcome.
Absolutely. This past hour has been very enlightening for me, and I really do hope that it's been as enlightening for you guys watching along with me. Now, before we end up, I want to thank you for the amazing insights. I would love to have a T-shirt that says "I'm from the future, baby," and I want to ship one out to you as well. That line was absolutely golden. Now, before we end off the show, final question is: where can our viewers learn more about Shaker, about this creative grant? Where can they go?
shakr.com/boost, or for all of you that are a part of Dee's phenomenal community, I think that maybe you've shared something in your Facebook group, right?
Absolutely.
There will be a link in there as well. Our website is shakr.com, and you can go shaker.com/boost, and you'll get all the information you need. Or you can shoot me an email, david@sha.kr.
Wow, that is very generous for you to share your email. Good luck with that. There might just be a torrent, a little tsunami coming your way with people wanting to learn more about living in the future. Speaking of which, I actually don't know whether you do or not, but do you share, as a founder, do you have a personal blog or any type of place on social where you share your learnings as a founder, or your journey or your challenges or anything like that? Because if not, I'm super proud honored to have all these learnings shared within this 1 hour.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this just came from the great conversation that you and I were having. So I'm really glad that we sat down together. I do have, I guess, a Twitter account that I don't tweet much on, David YH Lee, and I'm on Medium there as well. But I prefer to sit down with people, even if it's virtually like this in person. So one of my goals for the year, though, is to start putting out a little bit more content. So you'll probably see that on my Medium and on my Twitter account. More importantly, though, I'll be sharing. I've got a phenomenal video team here at Shaker. So we put out a lot of content on our Shaker Facebook page. So I think that might be a good spot to head to as well. So we're SHAKR on Facebook. Looking forward to connecting with you all there as well.
Amazing. All right, I'm gonna make sure I do the outro. David, do me a favor, stay on the line. I want to make sure I thank you properly once we stop the stream. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was David Lee. Oh my goodness, such great stuff coming out of this conversation. We went tactical, we went really high level, strategic, as well as life perspectives, and how to navigate so much of life as an entrepreneur. I come from the future, baby, is literally the best line that we've had on the show so far. So I'm gonna try to see if I can make some t-shirts happen. If you like this show, if you like this episode, please make sure that you leave a comment. Make sure that you like the video as well. And if you haven't subscribed already, do make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because every week we are interviewing and doing these lives with great entrepreneurs, getting them to share their journey. I appreciate your attention, and I'll see you next time on The GG Show. See you soon.